Welcome to the Blackwater Podcast. Today, your hosts Julius and Sage talk to Molly Green. Molly is a certified and practicing life and health coach. She considers herself to be a compulsive creator, a mystic, a chronic learner, and an aspiring structural integration practitioner. We hope you enjoy the show, and if you don't, we would love to hear about it. Well, we're here with Molly Green.
Hi.
Hey, Molly.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, good.
Well, Molly, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Sure. So, Julius, I sent you kind of a mini blurb about me earlier because I
loved it.
Thank you. I was listening to your other episodes and you had some very professional people come on here and I was like, well, I don't necessarily have all these certifications and I haven't been working with people in the way that I dream of working with people for very long. But I would just say that I'm an explorer of life and I call myself a mystic because I'm very curious about life, but I don't necessarily need to know a straight answer. And I tend to find the more I learn, the more I understand I don't know anything about life.
Yeah.
So it's just a continual exploration. I believe that my purpose is not kind of like a set in stone. My reason for being here is to enjoy life and to have fun and to be myself. And the more that I am myself, the more I find my life path. And that's really what's guided me throughout my life. So currently, I am a practicing life and health coach. So I can give you guys the resource for that if any of your listeners want to hit me up. I specialize in habit change and really getting in touch with yourself so you can be the creator of your own life rather than listening to somebody else to kind of guide you. So we slowly work to build that confidence and trust within the self to really just like let your own wings spread and let yourself fly in whatever direction you want to go. I told you that I am a compulsive creator. I have to be creating something. Like I cannot not have my hands on something. Sometimes that creativity is just learning about something new and seeing if I can incorporate that or try that out in my life. So I'm also a chronic learner. I cannot stop learning. Like I have to be, podcasts are my addiction, YouTube videos are my addiction, and I love just diving into a topic for a while, but I don't need to know everything about that topic. I'm one of those people that's like, I'll pick it up, let my intuition tell me what I need to know about that thing and then just kind of drop it and be okay with that. That's kind of come with like its learning curves though, because there's this virtuous thing where we think we have to follow something through to the end. So I kind of used to beat myself up about that, but I don't really do that anymore because I think it's just a part of my gift and my energy and the gift that I have to share with other people. Let's see what else about me. Oh, I'm obsessed with the human body. I think it's so cool. So what I'm interested in doing for my official adult career would be to become a fascia expert. So it's a type of massage that works with the fascia. It's a network in your body. It holds your nerves. It holds your energy centers, basically holds your body together. And actually the people I've been listening to recently about it think that it's also connected to your aura. So it's within the body and without the body, and it bridges all of my passions of mind, body, spirit, wellness.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. When I started learning about it, it was like I unlocked a key to knowledge and my purpose here, which is very exciting.
Come on a camp out and teach me what you know.
I would love to.
We'll trade fascia massages.
Oh my gosh. Actually, so for everybody listening, including you, there's a group of people, you might have seen them on TikTok or Instagram. They're called Human Garage, and they offer free self-practicing fascia exercises to reset your body. And over COVID, they decided, like, we have to offer this for free. So they figured out ways to sell supplements or do donation-based things to where they could continue to offer the general public healthcare, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I started their 1-day reset, their 3-day reset, and now I'm on their 7-day reset. And I can already tell a difference in like the way that my hips are set. Like my right foot, I'm walking more centered on my feet already.
Nice.
Yeah. And I actually got like an upper respiratory infection. And I understand that it's because there's so much trauma held in your fascia that, of course, I'm going to get sick. Like things are moving, they're clearing out of my body. So it's amazing. I can't speak highly of it enough.
It's really funny how that happens when you're undergoing like some kind of cleanse or just detoxification. Like all the stuff that's present in your body just erupts out. And then, of course, you know, the inevitable sickness or any kind of repercussion from that process.
Well, that's another funny thing about me is I'm incredibly intense. So not only did I start the fascial reset, I also did a liver detox.
Yes.
Like all together. So I did like a 2-day fast and then went to a strict vegan diet. And then for the last 3 weeks, I've been healing my gut basically. And then I was like, oh, let's add the fascia into it. So
Wow, yeah.
yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much do you know about poop?
You know, not that much. I've got like a gag book about poop in my bathroom. I've had 2 friends borrow it and read it all the way through, but I basically know what healthy poop is supposed to look like, and that's about it. Oh, and I do know, have you guys heard about where you like take someone's healthy poop and put it into your body to reset your gut?
No. What?
I've only heard about that when there's like something
transplant.
that kills. Yeah, it's usually used in extreme health cases, right?
Yeah, it is.
Wow, yeah. No, I wasn't aware of anything like that, but I did recently consider like a little side hustle. There's a couple of companies out there that will collect your stools and they will pay you for it, but you have to be like superbly healthy. Like you have
that's
to be
probably for the
top
poop
that.
transplants.
Sure, yeah. Well, and I'm sure that there's like some other study aspects going into just analyzing, you know, what healthy, proper stools are supposed to look like and supposed to be, and it might actually be going towards that kind of application.
Yeah.
So,
are we supposed to be pooping after every meal?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Did we just become best friends? We're talking about poop already.
I don't know. For me, it's so fascinating because I feel like it's like the end product in this complicated ecosystem of us trying to eat. And so I don't know, for me I feel like I'm a curious lifelong learner, and I'm an atheist aspiring to be a mystical atheist, so I'm vibing with the mysticism. And I love that our bodies are so fragile and so resilient and so short-lived. They're fascinating.
They are fascinating. Yeah, I expect to live to like 150, so
Nice.
I'll keep you updated on that. I think that there's so much there's so many longevity practices happening now, and with all the spiritual shifting and bridging the gap between the spirit and the body, I think that we'll live a lot longer than we have been in recent times. Yeah.
Well, there's even like I guess you could call it a conspiracy theory, but there are like alternative history people that are looking into, I guess it would be called like DNA reprogramming or something. Essentially what they're theorizing is that human genetics were modified at some point in our past so that we
More in the Old Testament.
So we don't live to a certain age anymore. We were like really constrained to this like 80, 90 year period, or even 10,000 years ago, way less than that. So it's
45.
45, you're an old man.
Oh, it's too short. There's too many things I want to do.
But it is interesting because now there's so many like longevity studies. There's so many different research plans and to modify human longevity. Human age is being projected more and more, especially like in the coming 100 years or so. They're really trying to figure out like the link between like aging and just human health. So
Yeah.
It's wild to see what's going to happen.
I'm excited to see where my journey takes me, because I'm sure it'll lead me down that path at some point. But right now, the life coaching and the health coaching really gets people to a place to where they would want to live to 150, you know, like learning that life is actually really beautiful, even in its ups and downs, and really giving people the experience of their own resiliency, or increasing their own resiliency, and, you know, finding the love in between the lines of their experience.
Molly? Your bio, I really did like your bio. It made me happy to read it, and I did feel like it was a good snapshot of you. But you had like a beautiful mystery inside of it. It was this idea that you've gone through so many transformations, and I'm curious, is that your journey through those transformations? Is that something that informs your present, or is it a past that you've just walked away with and it doesn't help you to revisit it?
Oh, my life is a spider web. Every experience is connected. And I'm very Scorpio in my astrological chart, which makes my life path very transformational. I am in a constant death and rebirth process, and I find that I am a really good guide for people going through a death and rebirth process. And I love, like I said, I love intensity, so I actually really enjoy that aspect of life. But I'm also a Pisces, so I have a very outward perspective on everything that happens. So I see kind of the bigger picture in how every experience has been connected. My transformation will never end. I will always be evolving, but my life path has definitely brought me where I am today, and I use each and every experience to help me grow forward. So I don't hold on to the past and fear that will resurface itself in the future. I respect my past, and I learn from it, and I continue moving from my experiences. And I love sharing my transformational stories and being open and vulnerable with people, because then it gives them permission to do the same and not take life so seriously. Because at the end of the day, they're just experience. And we're here to have fun and to learn from those experiences. And did that answer your question?
It did, and it sounded like you gave me permission to ask you about some of those transformations. Like, I'm curious about how you became who you are today. I don't know how far back you want to start.
Well, the day I was born. No.
Yeah, I'm here for that.
So I was born in Colorado. I feel like that has something to do with it. No, so let's see. I came from a really open family, very creative family. My mom started her own business in 1999 and was wildly successful for almost 25 years with zero business experience. She's just a creative. And anybody who's ever run a business, like, that's really fucking hard to do.
Yeah.
But she just had that personality. And my parents were always they always gave us the freedom to be ourselves and express ourselves, everywhere from wearing our costumes 6 months out of Halloween costumes 6 months out of the year to picking things up and putting them down whenever we pleased, which, you know, from a societal perspective, my mom was like, oh, we should have made you follow through with things, but really it just gave me the permission to explore life. Very loving family. So freaking blessed for my family. So in high school, I experienced eating disorders, which is kind of what introduced me to the physical body and gave me a very intimate relationship with my body. And now I see it's really tapped me into my signals of my body, given me a lot of exploration into nutrition and physical exercise. And then, I don't know, it's just taught me about self-love a lot. So from there, I lived so that was high school. First year of college, hated it. So I learned very quickly that traditional education was not for me, but I thought I was supposed to do it. So I battled anxiety and depression, which introduced me then to mental and emotional processes, even though I wasn't really conscious at this point. My awakening or my conscious living didn't really start until 2017, 2018. So all of this was happening, but I wasn't quite connecting the dots yet. So after my first year of college, I was like, I'm moving to Colorado because all my family was there and I wanted to do holistic healthcare. I was introduced to a chiropractic office that was like a whole in therapy house. So you can start to see where the love of the physical body is just presenting itself to me. Like, hey, this is your path. But I just wasn't quite, like, again, conscious of it. So there was this really cool therapy office with chiropractors and physical therapists and neurologists all on staff. And every single one of them worked with each individual patient. And we all worked on an action plan for their care so that they would actually be healed by the end of their 12-week program with us, rather than having to rely on us for the rest of their life. And I got to see physical miracles happen in that office. So I moved to Colorado and started going to an alternative medicine school, but not really old enough to take it super seriously. So kind of fucked around and found out and kind of went into a party stage, decided, I just want to make some money. So I switched to nursing school, moved back to Atlanta. And then this is kind of where like the whole awakening thing happens. Mind you, this entire time I'm still dealing with disordered eating habits, but it's kind of progressing through therapy, learning about nutrition, learning about alternative medicine, and then being really in touch with nature also helped me kind of start to heal that process. But the eating, I think that's kind of going to be my lesson teacher throughout my life because it is so close to my body. It's teaching me about my body. It's teaching me about my experience. So after Colorado, I moved back home, planned to go into nursing school to actually do Botox and cosmetic modifications because I want to help people, and that's a way to help people. So I ended up meeting a guy, and I had never met a manipulator before. I'd never met an opposing energy like that for me before because I'm an empath. And so sometimes those people attract one another for specific experiences. So I met my opposing energy and we quickly got married. And I was with him for a year. And in that time, that was leading towards my awakening. Basically, we're just like my life came into a conscious awareness. So let's see what happened during that. Basically, what happened was we were mirrors for one another. We would highlight the victim and the villain in one another. And I hope he sees it the same way I do. We don't talk anymore, but it was very necessary for me to really grow because I was making moves in my life impulsively, unconsciously, and I was not aligned with my highest good, basically. I've always been a very intuitive person, but until that point, I was not consciously aware of my gifts or my light. So towards the end of our relationship, there was a lot of synchronistic stuff that happened, but basically I told my mom that if it didn't work within a year that I would leave, and right about the year point, basically left a year on the date, which was nuts. But towards the end of it, I started learning about thought work, which is becoming aware of your thought processes and how your thoughts dictate your actions and how your emotions, basically how your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions are all intertwined. So I got to self-reflect in a different kind of way and pay attention to him in a different kind of way. And then I started tapping back into my yoga practice. And then on top of that, I added acupuncture and the heart opening of the yoga, the realigning and clearing of my chakras, and then the intense energetic clearing of the acupuncture opened my eyes and opened me wide open. So after I left that marriage, I don't know if you guys have an awakening story like that, but for me, it was like I was a different person and I was absorbing spiritual concepts like fucking crazy. Like I remember listening to A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I knew people who were reading it and listening to it. And I understood everything as if I were just remembering something.
Yeah.
Where some people weren't absorbing the concepts the same way. And I was just like, I mean, it was synchronicity after synchronicity. And I was learning and reflecting. And basically one thing led to the next, and I ended up going to a life and health coach school and getting my certification, completely healing my eating disorder through that, helping people along the way. I tapped into my mom's candle business and helped her bring it to its death, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll do death work at some point too. Like I said, I'm really good with endings and beginnings, but I did that for a few years, and now coming towards the end of that, learning all the lessons I needed to there, I'm now moving into my actual path of working with individuals, working with the body, and seeing where that takes me. Yeah, it's been quite the transformative process.
Yeah, it absolutely sounds like. I mean, that's a lot for a person to have to endure, even in their lifetime, let alone like a few years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's been so much fun. Oh my God. I've had so much fun. Yeah, I think that I never settled for being just kind of like floating through life. Mm-hmm. It's not that I'm necessarily searching for happiness, but I enjoy my heart being alive. I enjoy that excitement. I enjoy the colors of life. And so if there's ever a point where I'm not satisfied, I'm going to figure out how to change it and what needs to change in order for me to grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if you wanted to lean into the thought work that you talked about, because that sounds kind of like the inception for a lot of the later work that you ended up doing. What was the kind of, I guess, beginning process with that? Was it mostly meditation?
No, I had actually played with meditation through yoga a little bit, but never, even after thought work, I hadn't really adopted a meditative practice until maybe about a year ago. Because I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm a compulsive creator. I like to move. I've got a lot of energy flowing through me, so sitting down and meditating didn't always resonate with me. So thought work I actually learned through a woman named Cara Lowenthal. She's a lawyer, so she's very methodical and logical in her thought processes. Mm-hmm. My mom introduced me to her podcast, and so I would take walks and I would listen to her podcast. She teaches you, she's not like an expert in emotions, and emotions are basically how we experience life. It's very important for us to kind of go back and learn how to process our emotions properly, but I started with the mind because our society is very mentally focused, and it was easy for me to tap into and absorb quickly. So she teaches you that your thoughts are not you. Like, that's basically the whole point of it, is your thoughts have been programmed into you through your society, through your parents. You don't come into this world with all of these conflicting ideas and opinions and judgments on yourself and others. So you can really pay attention to what thoughts are happening and what thoughts are connected to those thoughts. And when you are able to open your awareness to those thoughts, then you can go in and change those specific thoughts. Mm-hmm. And her idea is when you change the thoughts, you therefore change the emotion. And if you're changing your thought to elicit a happier emotion, you're going to accomplish X, Y, and Z. It'll cause those actions because you're always going to move toward what feels good and move away from what doesn't. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Right? Okay. That's just a natural instinct of the body. So she says, change your thoughts to change your feelings to then change your habits and behaviors.
Sure.
Which now I understand that, like, your emotion, it's not that cut and dry. Your emotions are a lot more complex. And I mean, just learning about fascia, you've got freaking past lifetimes stored in your body and emotions that aren't going to necessarily make logical sense. But for the beginning of my journey and for the beginning of anybody's journey, that's a fabulous way to start. Because you can at least start somewhere and it makes logical sense. You know, you can, like, there's homework involved that you can do and actual changes you can see pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I'm curious, the process of changing your thoughts. And then I am deeply curious about, you made a very strong statement. I might be misremembering it, but you're basically saying that you cured or got over your eating disorder?
I would say I cured it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a huge pat on my back, honestly, because somebody told me one time We were trauma bonding. And they were saying that's something you'll deal with for the rest of your life. And I said, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking not. I was like, there's no way that this is going to be the focus of the rest of my life. Because when you have a disordered eating habit, you have no room for anything else. It controls your mind. It's like all you think about all day is like, basically, how am I going to eat? How is it going to make me look? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it was a lot of deconstructing. Oh my God, deconstructing so many thoughts and so much that was put into my mind about how I'm supposed to look and how that is tied to my value as a woman. I would say that the candle business, or the business that I told you my mom started, it was a candle business. And that's the one that I got involved with for about 4 years. That helped also. It was not just the thought work, but that helped also because it gave me something else to focus on that was outside of myself and some creative outlet. And so my creative energy was being put into something different than self-deprecation. So that was incredibly helpful to see my value outside of my body. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of that. I would say that I'm aware of my eating still, but I utilize my shifting eating habits to kind of show me what might not be aligned in my life. It's more of like a signal now than it is a burden or an issue. The thought work, I would highly recommend anybody look up Unfuck Your Brain with Cara Lowenthal because she does an amazing job of explaining it. Yeah, you'll be obsessed with her episodes. They're not super long. She's very precise in the way she speaks. I would say she's a feminist coach, but I would say anybody can listen to her and gain perspective on themselves.
We might have had a guest or someone I talked to recently mention that podcast.
Yeah, it's life-changing, man.
It's definitely going around right now. A good friend of mine has been listening to her for quite some time, and he recommended her, and the way that he described her process, even though she is kind of more catered towards like lawyers, like she coming from her background and whatnot, the information is so relevant to like literally unfucking your mind. Like that's the premise that she's working with, is to take ourselves out of these patterns of thought and transmuting them.
And it really is a practice. Like there is homework you can do, but you have got to practice because your brain makes pathways makes habit pathways, and those just become your default programming because it's the body's trying to conserve energy. So anytime you change your thought processes, it's taking energy. I don't know if you have read a bunch of books or like tried to learn a lot, you end up eating more. Your body's literally looking for energy when you're learning information because it takes physical energy. So just like meditation, the thought work is a practice that you continually get better at. And I would say that all of the practices that I've adopted in my spiritual awakening experience, it's been mental, emotional, and physical. And then the spiritual aspect with synchronicities and manifestation and stuff. I was reflecting with a friend of mine, and we're also starting a podcast, but it's very much based in the work that we've done. So everything I'm talking about, but broken down into a coaching format where you can actually practice at home.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's pretty necessary. But I was explaining something because we were working on the root chakra. And I was like, for all of our listeners, like these processes I'm realizing are now taking me 15 minutes when they used to take me a year to really figure out. But I've been practicing so much that making these connections, changing my thoughts, processing my emotions, and shifting my behavior has just become a more natural process for me now.
Yeah.
But I did break it up into pieces and learn things one at a time and pick things up and put them back down and just kind of intuitively followed what I needed at the time.
I think that's with any practice really is being able to take it and turn it into a practice. Break it into sections, but also like the consistency, like creating a consistent schedule for yourself to actually practice these skills and to implement them into your life in a way that's going to be advantageous for you. I mean, it's like going to the gym. Like, everybody hates going to the gym when they haven't been to the gym in 3 years. You know, but it takes that initial step and then that consistency to fall back into line.
And what's so cool now is there's so much information and there's so many different ways of doing the same thing that you can be just like me and like to do things for 5 minutes and then move on and still get to the same destination. You don't have to stick with something until the very end. Like, there's a couple of books. There's one called How to Do the Work. There's another one called, God, her name is Christine Hassler. She's another freaking coaching genius. Anyway, they've got 2 very similar books, and I think I've made it 3/4 of the way through on both, but I've still grown through both of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Books are usually done telling you whatever the heck they're telling you about that quarter halfway mark.
Well, those books do have exercises and stuff too.
Yeah. Molly, can you walk us through maybe an example, like a concrete example of this thought work?
I wish I had put something together. So, okay, let me think about the process. I haven't actually sat down and done the journaling process, but it does require a journal, and it requires you setting aside, 5 to 15 minutes a day to do it. And you generally will only work on 2 to 10 thoughts at a time. And when I say 10 thoughts, they're 10 thoughts that are semi-related. I like to tell people, don't try to broaden your spectrum and try to attack everything at once. Because likely when you start on one thing, the other things are going to benefit, even if they don't seem to be related. So you kind of sit down with yourself, and first things first, you have to adopt a non-judgmental perspective on yourself. Because these thoughts are not your fault, and they're not just coming from your spirit. Okay? Usually your spirit's thoughts are very quiet, and they come in feelings or quick intuitive inclinations. They're not telling you that you're a bad person because of X, Y, and Z. Those are things that you learned along the way. So those thoughts are not your fault. Now, when you go into the space, understanding that your thoughts are neither good nor bad, you can sit with yourself for 10 or 15 minutes and just write down everything you're thinking. I like to do it when I'm kind of angry or something, because when you're feeling an emotion like anger or sadness, that's tapping you into your shadow work a little bit. And I love the shadow work because that's what really propels me forward. So say I'm fucking angry. I'm going to write down every thought I have, even if it involves another person. And this other person it doesn't actually mean anything about them, right? This is just the truth of what's going on through my head. And you have to know what's actually happening inside of your head. So honesty is the best policy. Write down all of your thoughts, and then I generally will highlight 5 that seem really prevalent. Anything that has should in it is really good because that alludes to shame. And you don't want to feel ashamed of yourself. So then you go through that, and I'm trying to remember the process exactly as it is, as she does it, but you look at those honest thoughts that you're having, and you create a structure for yourself to slowly get to the thought you want to have instead. So say, for example, your thought is, I'm fat. Okay, and I'm going to say that because that's one that I've had before. But you want to think, I am beautiful no matter what my body looks like. Well, that's a really big fucking jump to make, okay? That is, you could practice that thought all you want, but it's basically as valuable as an affirmation because you don't believe that. So instead, you jump to something like, I have a human body, because that's true. And you can look in the mirror, and when you hear that thought, I'm fat, you say, no, I have a human body. So every time you catch yourself saying the thought that you no longer want to have, you replace it with the thought that you're practicing. And she recommends practicing. I'm so happy I'm remembering this. Wow. She recommends practicing specifically a few times a day. But if you're only practicing a few thoughts, I find it kind of easy to just catch those thoughts and then change them.
Sure.
So that's how I integrate it, but you can make it work for however works for you. You could even record them on your phone and listen to those thoughts a couple times a day. I like to say them. I think using the voice is really powerful. Saying them to yourself in the mirror is incredibly powerful. Stuff like that. And eventually you create what's called a thought ladder, and you keep working your way up to your desired thought. You'll find that you will skip a few because one of them just kind of unlocks a key, and then you're at your actual thought that you want to be thinking. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's retraining your brain and taking really control of your life. Because honestly, if you can set your mind free, you set yourself free.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. That felt articulate and concise.
Oh, good. Good.
I was thinking about the part you mentioned about acknowledging like shame, like the shame trails, which is actually, like, now that I'm thinking about it and putting it in perspective, I may not have practiced this in particular, but I do write in moments of, I guess, like extreme emotion, like anger or fear, sadness. I love to write out my thoughts so that it's just out. And a lot of those kinds of, I guess, monologues become like very like self-deprecating, like very shame-filled. Writing like I should be doing this is kind of been like my self-talk for many years.
Wow, yeah.
So it's cool to be able to, I guess, reflect on that in this moment and think about, I guess, how my mind has changed in my own way, in my own practice. Because I notice I don't write I should on things anymore. I think
congratulations.
It was just kind of a natural reaction after like reviewing journals and going, wow, I really am hard on myself.
Yeah, you're like, well, who's telling me I have to do these things anyway?
Yeah.
It's a lie. Like, I don't have to do anything. I can come up with a creative solution and live my life exactly how I want to.
And do so with compassion.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I play a game with you guys?
Sure.
Yes.
I love games.
We had this guest, the sex addiction therapist. And the most mind-blowing thing for me from that episode was the idea of functional shame. And basically her premise was that for some of her clients, she wants them to feel shame.
Yeah.
Like if they're doing things that go against their own internal value system, or things that are destructive for their lives. And for me, that was kind of mind-blowing. I'm still kind of processing it, and I'm curious how you guys would play with that idea and how you would turn that into the conversation we just had.
I have to chew on that one. I also need to listen to that episode.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
That was one that I wanted to listen to of yours. I've loved your episodes, by the way. They're awesome. You've interviewed some really cool people. I'm very honored to be here. I'm like, what? I'm along with all these people.
You're already a great one.
Have me on anytime. I love the microphone. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about that to give you an opinion, to be honest.
I think maybe for something structured towards addictions or anything related to our personal lives that might be kind of internally destructive, it might be best suited for like work with a professional, such as Ms. Schiller, to, I guess, really kind of have that space, create that container where that emotion can be processed. I guess in a structured environment. Whereas if you're just kind of journaling there by yourself and you're working on, I guess, inner conflicts or even just trying to get thoughts out, I guess for me, in at least in this present moment, trying to implement shame back into the process would just be kind of like taking steps backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying before about how our emotions will guide our behaviors. So I'm assuming that utilizing that emotion either way, it's bringing consciousness to that emotion and utilizing it as a tool to then live their life in the way that they want to live their life. But I'm not an addiction specialist. And I think that that's for a certain kind of person who dedicates their life work to that, because it's a different field. A lot of respect for it.
Yeah, and there's definitely, we can arrive at the same place from different paths. So maybe this thing is entirely valid, and also too the like place of non-judgment moving through it's entirely valid.
Yeah. That's the best thing about non-judgment, is you can hear something like that almost, well, everything's a paradox anyway, so whatever. And you're just like, okay, that's fine. It can be, the two things can be accurate at the same time.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, fuck it.
Or not. Or one could be completely wrong.
Well, we'll find out eventually.
Yeah. Will we?
we always learn sometime.
That's actually an interesting exploration, Julius. I was curious how you might be working on that.
The shame one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for me, shame can be a motivator. So in this particular case, she was talking about these people who were in the depths of addiction. They would write basically everything they've ever done to hurt, probably in most cases, their partner. And they read it in front of them, have them basically and then allow the partner to have their full emotional experience, rage or whatever it is. And so I feel like, especially if you're engaged in behaviors that are hurtful for other people, I feel like a lot of times when I'm engaged in hurting other people, I have to disassociate to remove myself from the pain that I'm causing them. And that's a way to protect myself, but it also allows me to engage in longer term behaviors that hurt people. So shame, I think, the way I'm understanding it is it can be a good short-term transition to something else. But definitely, I feel like if you're experiencing shame for long periods of time, I in no way could believe that would be functional.
Yeah, I wonder if, like, put it in that context, like, it's me personally, I've lived with shame for many years of my life. So I feel like if I was put in a room and somebody was like, "You're fucking up," I'd be like, "I know."
I know.
Whereas, like, in those kinds of situations, it may be where these people, like you said, have disassociated the direct consequence of their actions, and so they're not putting those emotional contexts into their own perception. So who knows, it may be more effective for people who are just like, I'm doing just fine, and their partners are like, no.
I mean, I'm here for it, honestly. Like, hearing you explain it like that, I understand it a lot better. And I'm like, wow, what a tower moment. Like, that's so transformative for both people involved. The person really getting to express their raw emotion towards the, for lack of a better word, I don't want to use that word. The person that it's inflicted pain upon them. And then for them to receive that emotion and hold space for that emotion, like, that's gotta be transformative. Even if, like, they're trying to, elicit shame in that person,
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful, honestly.
Just to also add a little bit more context, Miss Schiller definitely did talk about the idea of the people who come into her practice in the light of these were all started out as innocent, beautiful children. And so to some degree, when she's interacting with these people, you can see these people who have done horrendous things potentially in that light, that they were once innocent children.
That makes me I've always wanted to ask, like, these spiritual people that I listen to on podcasts, like, what do you think about serial killers? Nobody ever talks about that. And I'm like, so how do you put your perspective into this? Like, I know what my perspective is, but how do you explain it?
She actually talked about,
like, psychopaths.
I don't know if she talked about, so basically she said she can she can help anyone if they experience shame, but if
Okay.
people don't experience shame, she can't move to the transformative experience with them.
I've got to listen to her. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was a good one. She's really good. Hey, if you hear a squeaking noise, she has a dog named Walnut that had a play toy that I kept trying to hide.
We
So
love
in that episode, you'll
Walnut.
hear
Cute.
I think that's the reality, though, with working with people who have sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies, is there really is not like a bridge that can be created. Because for their personal journey, they may not even experience anything like empathy. It's just not a natural process for them. They can learn social cues. They can, kind of mimic what they believe people expect from them. But it's hard, I think, to, work with people like that on a professional level. I can't even imagine what it'd be like on a personal level of actually like trying to walk somebody down the road towards transformation if they're completely unable to even acknowledge that there's a problem.
Yeah. Well, somebody has to volunteer for transformation or like want to do it,
And they still could. So I went to, it's called PsyOp. It's like a conference for IO psychologists. And there was this group of consultants, and their job was to coach C-suite level people. So people in the C-suite, CFOs, CEOs, they're much higher in these, what you would call dark triad: psychopathy, Machiavellianism, sociopathy, much higher in these traits than normal populations. Because if you think about like CEOs, the things that they have to do are pretty ruthless.
Yeah, totally.
And so there's a lot of advantages to having these personality traits, but there's a lot of downsides. So these coaches were talking about, okay, how do you coach these people to recognize that some of these things can be strengths, but not alienate and create a horrible culture for your employees?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it in that context, because you're absolutely right. Like, I guess capitalism is really, better suited for psychopaths.
Damn. Corporatism.
Yeah. Corporatism. Yes. Corporatism suits.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Capitalism not restrained by ethics.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And then it goes back to the non-judgment thing. Like, should we be judging them as wrong?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's why I always wanted to ask. Like, there's a couple of people. There's one girl that I listen to named Jessa Reed, and she's very like alien-based spiritual topics. She's so fun. She's a comedian. But I've always been like, so what do you think about serial killers? Like, tell me your perspective, Jessa.
You need to get her on your podcast.
Oh
or
my
get her
God.
on ours.
I would die.
We'll all be there.
Okay, deal. I would literally die. She's like my idol.
That's too cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of the kind of conversations that we've had often revolve or somehow tap into this idea of integration and how we're able to take these really interpersonal lessons and practices, and how do we ultimately utilize this in our lives? How do we take this information that we have actively coming in, these transformations? How do we apply them in a way that is beneficial?
Do you have a specific one, or?
Well, even with like, I guess the thought practice, like being able to, it's one thing to like acknowledge your thoughts and to start using them, I guess, to transform your life on a personal level. But how do we really know if we're integrating these things? How do we really know if it's working? I guess.
Your life changes. It really does. I mean, you're integrating because your perspective about life and then your choices in life and your ideas about life just change. The people around you change. That's kind of the hard part, though.
Yeah.
That's where people stop, because when you do the work, your life changes, and that can be really scary.
And you can't take some people with you.
Yeah. Not just for the brain, but the body as well. So that's why I really value having either a community or a coach, to help you move through if change is something that you really want, because your brain does not like to use energy. It's trying to conserve energy. And when you put it through change, it's going to be like, shit, wait, no, let's go back. Even if the change is good. Even if it's something that you want, your brain is going to put every fight it has to tell you to go back. So finding a community or finding a coach, investing money into yourself. I cannot tell you how important that is. That's like a huge excuse for people. And in my experience, whenever I invest money into myself in this sort of way, the money always finds its way back into my bank account. Whether it's a freaking gift or a couple extra hour shifts or a couple more clients or whatever, it always finds its way back to me. All of the money that I've invested into my coaching, into my books, into whatever program has always served itself in time, because I don't feel like I'm wasting my life. I'm fulfilled. I'm 28 and I feel completely fulfilled with my life. In time, in emotion, in whatever. It's just, and I'm not saying anybody's wasting their life. That's like not what I meant to say, but I'm just not running in circles like I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The integration part, I don't know. I just for me, it's just been kind of immersing myself in it, because I learned that it brings me joy and it brings me comfort and transformation. So I just kind of find a practice every day. And a lot of that is just listening to a podcast. Sometimes that's enough. Just finding a couple hosts that feel like your friends and give you cool information to feed your brain. Some days that's just enough. The weird thing is the integration stuff. It's an energetic integration too. And sometimes when I learn things, I go into what we call a dark night of the soul, or like a void state, where it almost feels like I'm disconnected from my reality a little bit. I don't feel like myself. Sometimes if I'm not aware of what's happening, it can feel like a depression or a mania, but more so like a depression. It's like a, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I alive state? And I've learned that that's just kind of a part of whatever information's coming at me from the ether is now coming into my body. And that can feel really heavy. But if I can just tap into my self-care, take some more walks, feed myself nurturing foods, rest, watch some funny shows, listen to some podcasts, in a few days, a week, couple weeks, whatever, however long it takes, I'll be back into an upswing again, and basically a new person with great creative ideas and unlimited energy and whatever else is on the other side. Something beautiful, usually.
I love that.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I think a lot of people need to hear. And it takes time too.
It does.
It really can just be a process that does take time. That part goes into investment too. The self-investment is, it can be a financial hardship. We convince ourselves out of spending money all the time, but I think we also convince ourselves out of spending time. So I think it's important to take that time when it presents itself. It's those opportunities that are important. What were you saying, Julius?
I'll say, let's wrap a bow on it.
Yeah, I think that was absolutely perfect.
Okay.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to kind of send our audience off?
Yeah, don't discount your free resources. I know that I said spend money on yourself, but like you said, spending time on yourself is just as important. Podcast. Just start exploring, follow your curiosity. And then when you find the right resource to actually invest the money into, then take that leap. Don't be afraid. And if you need anything from me, you can always message me. I'm happy to help individuals. And like I said, I'm offering my coaching and nutrition services, life coaching, and then health services. And I'm planning on doing a donation-based offering as well for people who need the financial leeway or whatever, the scale. I just want to help people, so.
And how will they find you?
I'll have all the links and stuff on my Instagram. So I don't know exactly what I'm calling it yet. So I'm just going to give you guys the links. Just let me know when you want to post. And then in your show notes, I'll just give you all the information so people can reach it there.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
That gives me a deadline to find a name too. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Molly, so much for being here with us and just taking this time. And it's been an awesome conversation.
Thanks for having me. We talked about serial killers. My day is complete.
Yeah. We started with poop and we ended on serial killers.
Love it.
Thank you, Julius.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure to speak with you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. See you in the woods.
Yeah, see you soon.
Yeah,
Love
April.
you, Julius.
Love you too.
We'll see you, man.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you'll join us for our next episode, where we'll be talking with Daniel Hoover. Daniel is one of our dearest friends. He is a father, a naturalist, a sustainable agricultural consultant, and serial entrepreneur. We love you. We wish you well.